All right, so today what we're going to be going over is the sliding compound miter saw. So by sliding compound miter saw, what this saw does, if you're cutting any angles, 45 or 0, perfectly square, all the way up to 60 degrees, you can cut angle cuts and miters on it. It also will tilt, and so you can do a compound miter. Chances are you're not going to have to do a compound miter in here just because it's having it angled and at another angle. There's a lot that can happen if you don't know what you're doing or if you're not properly trained. So primarily, you're just going to use it as like a chopping motion. So what I mean by a sliding compound miter saw, this actually slides out, so you can cut down and cut all the way back down through the piece and then come back up. Now, there is a way that you can actually lock it. So the locking knob is back here. So now I can't pull out, all right? So it won't slide out to give me that extra distance, all right? So on here, there's a little sign that has, like, it looks kind of like a non-smoking sign, except it has a hand in the middle of it. What that means is you don't want your hands inside this space. So it's roughly 6 to 8 inches on either side of the blade, because if it binds, it kicks back, or you, for some reason, you don't have it pushed up against the back of the fence, then it's going to bind and will flip it up, and you can get seriously injured. So anytime that you're using this, you're always going to want to have the long side of the board to your left. All right, you're going to hold it with your left hand, and you operate the saw with the right hand. Now, sometimes if you're cutting different multiple angles, because this actually angles both ways, you have to use it with your right hand and then operate it with your left hand, but that's rare. I'm actually left-handed, but using all these tools in that, I've just gotten so used to using it the way that everybody else does. The main point that you want to make sure that you're doing is that this is pushed back against the fence, because when that's spinning, all right, if it's pushed back here, this rotates in, the blade rotates in. So if it's sticking out like this, what's going to happen, that blade has teeth, it's going to grip it, it's going to slam up against the back of the fence. It can slam back up at the fence, it's going to flip it up. You might accidentally suddenly jerk, or it might pull your hand in. So you always want to make sure you're pressing down and it's back against this back fence. Now, what's cool about this is that it has dust evacuation out through here. So when you're cutting it, the dust system is on, and it'll suck all the dust out through here. There will be some dust or residual dust, or I like to call it man glitter, so you guys can get a good laugh about that. So I'm actually going to mark my workpiece. I have a carpenter's pencil and I have my speed square or carpenter's square. So I'm just going to make a line across here so I know which way I'm going to cut. So to say that you're cutting, all right, and there's a reason why I put an X on here. So I put an X on this piece of wood because I know from here to the far end, that's the length or the desired cut that I want. So I put an X on here so I know I want the blade on this side of the line. So the blade is actually 1/8 of an inch thick. So if I were to cut it on the line, I'm going to lose a 1/16 of an inch on this side, so it'll be too short. If I cut on this side of the line, I'm going to lose a whole 1/8 of an inch. So the reasoning behind you're losing the 1/8 of an inch, or the technical term, is called the kerf. So the kerf of the blade is 1/8 of an inch. So it's actually the thickness of the teeth that's on that blade itself. So when you're actually cutting with this, what's cool about this saw, it has like a double safety system on it. So I can squeeze the trigger, but it's not going to start. But what that allows me to do is to actually come down, touch the blade to the piece of wood, and line up where I'm going to cut at. When I actually go to cut, I'll push in with my thumb, squeeze it, and then it will start up. So I am going to go turn on the dust evacuation system and everything, and I'll mute my mic on this time because it's going to be really, really loud. But I'm going to explain what I'm going to do. You notice when I squeeze the trigger, it's all the way up in the rest position. The blade guard and everything is secured, it's safe. But I'm going to let it get up to speed. So you always want to make sure this gets up to speed, and you're not slamming it down as hard as you can, trying to cut as quick as possible. That's not the proper way to use this machine. It only cuts so fast. So when it's spinning and all of a sudden you slam something into it, something's going to go wrong. It's like if you're riding your bike and you're with your buddies, and then someone thinks it's funny, they take a stick and they throw it in your front fork and you flip over. It's about the same concept like that. So you have something in motion and all of a sudden you instantly stop that motion, you know, someone's gonna get hurt. So let me go turn on the dust system, I'll make the cut, and then we'll come back and discuss. Also, if you notice, I have my lanyard. I'm going to tuck that in because anytime you use a machine, you don't want any loose clothing. I mean, my wristwatch is tight. So I'm going to mute my mic and then you guys can watch this cut. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually lining it up to make sure that my board is correctly positioned. I'm pushing back and in. My hands are on the other side of that danger zone, or the place where you don't want to push your hands. So I push start, let it get up to speed, and I'll make my cut. Also, I do want to make sure that you guys are using the proper PPE, which is personal protective equipment. So you notice I have my safety glasses on. All right, your eyes is one of your most important senses. And so by wearing my safety glasses, I'm preventing if any sawdust or something is sitting in there or on the blade or on the workspace so it doesn't come up and fling and hit me in the eye.